Christites. Today with us is Mr. Michael Cheng. He's the chair for Center for Playback Theatre and also the artistic director for Tapestry Playback Theatre. On the occasion of International Playback Theatre Network Conference happening here at Christ, we are overwhelmed to have this opportunity to interview Sir.
Alright, so let's start with Tapestry Playback Theatre. It was the first playback theatre group in Singapore. So we would love to know about the culture of playback theatre in Singapore.
Well, to be clear, I was not the founder of the group.
Right.
So what I know of the history is that in 2002, a social worker by the name of Agnes Law, she was working at a social service agency,
Okay.
and she went to New Zealand to learn playback theatre.
Mhm.
And then very quickly after that, she brought a second teacher, Veronica. The first was Bev Hosking, and then the second one was Veronica Nida. And out of the training that Veronica did in Singapore, there were the members of the group, the first members of the group.
Alright.
So since then, we've had quite tremendous growth, especially in the last few years. Now we are a group of about 13 or 12, can't
Oh.
quite remember. And it's been a long journey. In 2005, we also organized the first Asia Playback Gathering.
Uh-huh.
So that was something very important for us in terms of acknowledging the different playback cultures, the different playback groups in Asia, and we brought them to Singapore. So that was quite a big deal for us.
Right, that's really good to know.
Okay, next question, Sir. As we know that playback theatre is usually performed in school, non-profit organizations and universities, but in recent years we've seen that there has been a transition where this theatrical form has been used in transitional justice and human rights. How does that work?
Well, in Singapore, I think we work quite differently with playback theatre. The two main ways in which playback theatre are used in Singapore is either performance for the community or a workshop with the community. So the kinds of work that we have done are with, for example, caregivers and families and patients living with dementia or living with HIV. And it could also be that we're working with youth at risk or married couples, and these are mostly performances. Sometimes it's for specific groups, sometimes it's for specific issues. So I remember one performance that we did for Human Rights Day quite some time ago, and the theme was Just Another Day. And we wanted to look at social justice in everyday situations, thus just another day, because it happens, sometimes unconsciously, subconsciously, it happens at, almost every day. So those are performances for the community. We sometimes have workshops with the community, for instance, for personal development or for looking at very specific issues that are specific to that community. For instance, we might be working with healthcare workers about their need for self-care. We might be working for a group of volunteers who are going to lead sessions on end-of-life issues, for example. So those are some examples of what we've done. But I've also done a project that is a little bit different from these two models, which is basically getting a group of people from the community to learn playback theatre, and then they play back to their members of their community. So this was, I think, in 2012, and a second one in 2014. We brought a group of people together from different countries because at that time, immigration, migration, integration, these issues were important. They're not any less important now, but at that time there was a lot of dialogue and conversations around these issues.
Right.
So we brought people from different countries together over a period of, I think, 3 months. They trained in playback theatre, and then they put on public performances. And because now the performers are from different countries, they would also bring in their friends and families to watch their performances. So we could really have that true dialogue of people of different cultures living in the same space and what that might mean for us moving forward as a society. So this is some of the work that we've done.
Right. Well, then, since you've used playback theatre as a transformative tool in the society, what was your inspiration, or when did you decide to dwell into the social work using this theatrical format?
Even before playback theatre, I was interested in political issues. And at that time, personally, I pursued advocacy, but it didn't feel like it worked too well. I felt like I didn't quite belong in that environment. And then I went into the social sector.
Right.
I was working with people with special needs. And then I came across Playback Theatre, and I felt like this was a place where I could slowly make a real difference, working with real people, um, and leave in some ways, not an active advocacy, but really working one on one with people, listening to people's minds, hearts, and spirits, and trying to make it a better place for all of us, just one story at a time.
Yeah.
And that I felt is more what I'm comfortable with. So that is the kind of beginning of doing some kind of work with playback theatre. But in the first few years, we had to get better at it,
Right.
because if we were not as well trained, if we were not so active in listening, if we were not so aware of social issues, then it will not have impact. It might even create very ineffective dialogue. It might even make things worse in some cases. So we had to get better at the craft, and not all of us were theatre trained. Some of us were social work trained, some of us from the corporate sector, some of us were from the theatre. So we brought all of these people together. We brought in different perspectives. We really trained hard at it. We met every Saturday, and Saturday is precious, right? Family, friends, but
Right.
we made that commitment. Even after 17 years, we are still meeting on Saturday nights. So we got better and better. We matured. We knew more about the different social issues we're interested in, or that's current in Singapore and around the world. And for myself, I was interested in different issues at different times.
Right.
For a period of time, I was interested in what is Singapore, and what is Singapore for the people who are staying there, and that includes the people who are born there, but that also includes so many of those who are coming to Singapore to make a living, to be with family, and how we can make that a place that works for all of us. And I really mean all of us, because it's easy to make things work for a particular segment of society, but there are a lot more people that are left behind. Um, and really is about listening to the stories of representations from everyone, not just like you and not just you, but okay, now that you've spoken, how about you? And now that
Right.
you've spoken, how about you? And interactive listening. And nowadays, I'm also more interested in working with people with disabilities. Um, on one hand, it's advocacy for them. Um, Another part of it is what are the social issues, political decisions that are affecting them,
Right.
societal structures, whether they have the space to find work, and not even just work. Do they have the same rights to leisure as the rest of us? What might they do after they leave school if they couldn't find a job?
Right.
And one more part of that is that how would playback theatre work with people with different abilities? So if I was blind, how might I work with somebody who was who was deaf? If I am in a wheelchair, how can I move with other people with different abilities, and make that kind of a work, so that when we say playback is for everyone, I think it really is for everyone, but we need to find ways to make it work.
Right. While talking about communities as such, we would love to know about 3 Cups of Coffee, which was your initiative. So, what is it all about, and how did it come up?
So you mentioned in introduction that we are the first group. Tapestry was the first group,
Right.
and we were the first and only group for a long time.
Right.
And we gave workshops on playback theatre. We introduced workshops and apprentice programs, but there wasn't really a community of playback groups. There were no other groups coming up, or even if they came up, they very quickly died.
Right.
And I started thinking about, so how do we really create a community of people who do playback? And it's also about providing a space for people who have learned playback from us, but are not in our groups, are not in Tapestry. And for me, I think, the first thing to say is an effective group size for me is about 15, 16, because we want to make time for everybody's stories. So we can't take in everybody that is in the workshop into
Right.
our group. So at that time there was a group of people that I was training in a church, and their training finished. They wanted to continue to do playback, and I brought them together with some other people who have learned playback from Tapestry's workshop, and we started this group called Three Cups of Kopi.
Right.
I think this was maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Ah.
So they meet again every Monday. So again, it's a sign of their commitment, because Monday is a horrible day for
Right.
everyone, right? So they meet every Monday night. They practice. They're a group of theater practitioners, educators, social workers, therapists, and they do performances for youth, for schools, for residentials, and so that's 3 cups of kopi.
Right.
Yeah, and the name itself is interesting. 3 cups of
Three
kopi.
cups of coffee. Yeah.
So because in playback theater we have the three circles:
Mhm.
ritual, artistry, and communication. Right, interactive communication with the community. So it's like drinking coffee. It can be a piece of art. You've seen those cafe latte things,
Right.
and it's also a ritual. Like some people have to have it every day, or in the afternoon, and it's social communication, because I sit with you over a cup of coffee and we talk about our day or what's happening. So we thought that was a good name.
So we also know that you worked for many autistic students in different schools. So could you tell something about that experience?
So I was a school teacher, and the school was a special school, and the students there were with autism and with multiple disabilities. So after I left that school, and I had learned a little bit more about playback theater, I thought about how to combine these two passions of mine. So I started offering drama classes, but it wasn't about teaching them how to do drama. It was more about using drama for social emotional learning, and also space for them to share whatever they want to share
Yeah.
about their day, about their teachers, about their schoolwork. So I started experimenting, and I started using particular playback theater techniques. And it's in some cases it worked, in some cases it doesn't. It's always changing. I'm always learning, and it's because every one of them is different, and every one of them needs something different in order to share what's deep in their hearts. Um, but also sometimes it doesn't have to be something really deep. It could just be, I had a fight with my friend in the canteen. I don't ever want to sit with him again, and it's still precious. And we want to, and if his other classmates can play that out for him, it's very precious. They're understanding his world, and it might even have happened to them, so they understand this really well, and what happens with the different perspectives of the story.
So since you're an educator in different institutions, like, did this line of work pose any challenge to you?
That's a really difficult question. So part of my work is teaching applied drama techniques to teenagers as well as adults. That has its own set of challenges. I mean, it's an academic institution, so it's. I mean, I love the people that I'm working with. I love the students, and obviously I'm passionate about the craft. But because it's an academic institution, I'm not so crazy about giving marks and grading students and doing the reports, for example. Um, and I much really prefer also like a workshop setting, where I am really in the moment and working with people, rather than thinking about how am I assessing him, how did he do on this particular rubric and all of that. So I prefer being in a workshop, whether it's teaching applied drama or whether it's playback theater only. It's great to work with just people and really pay attention to what's in the moment, coming from individuals in that group.
Alright, so regarding your future endeavors as such, you're a board member for Center of Playback Theatre,
Mhm.
yeah, and what are your expectations from the PT Leadership 2020, which is happening in Mexico?
So the Playback Theatre Leadership is a course that happens every year for about 20 students.
Yeah.
It is so after that people graduate with a diploma in Playback Theatre, and there are 4 levels to this diploma.
Yeah.
So every year we're also having it in a different place. Last year was the UK. The year before that was Estonia. So next year, as you mentioned, it's in Mexico. And the idea was also to bring it to different geographical locations so that different people can have access to this training.
Right.
Next year is really interesting. I have many expectations about it. It's in Mexico. It's in a place where socioeconomic conditions are not ideal. There are many issues, and even for students to be able to come to the training will be a challenge. They would have to stop working for 2 weeks. They would have to leave their families. They would have to find money for the school fees. So I am excited about making it happen. I am a little bit apprehensive whether everybody can come. I mean, those who qualify for the course, whether they can come. I'm excited to work with my co-teacher, Hannah Fox. Um, so at the same time, I mean, playback theater also teaches us to live in the moment. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the stories are coming from. So I am going to wait and see what else is bubbling up in me.
All right.
So, can you tell us about your experience here in Christ in India?
Wow, it's been an amazing. I can't. It's been so amazing. I don't even remember what day today is. From the first time I touched down and then I came into the city, it was an explosion of colors, of sounds, and there were literal explosions each time I ate something different. There's so many different flavors.
Right.
But I mean, the last few days have also been really amazing because it's my first time in India. And at the same time, I'm meeting so many friends that I've met in other places, and
Okay.
we're all here in India. And one amazing thing is also I've had a few students who are from India, and for me, it's like I can't believe I'm here meeting my students in their home country. I mean, it's an amazing honor, a privilege, and I hope I find out what day it is tomorrow so I won't miss my flight.
All right, sir. So, us representing Christ University, we would like to thank Mr. Michael Cheng
Thank you.
to be with us here and talk about his experiences and all the other things. We really wish you have a really good stay here, sir. And I hope the conference goes on as you expected and way much more than that.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.